The afternoon light was thin and gold, like the edge of a tired coin. I had a cup of tea in my hand, its warmth seeping through the porcelain and into my palms. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked like it wanted to be somewhere else. That was when I heard her voice, low, sharp, and impatient, from the living room. "Just take the whole set, all right? She won't even notice. They've been sitting there for years." It was my daughter-in-law, Jenna. The words slid through me slowly, like cold honey. She was talking to someone over her phone. Her tone carried that careless confidence of a person who had never been told no for real. I didn't move. The spoon in my cup made a soft, accidental clink through the sliding door between the kitchen and living room. I could see the reflection of my jewelry box on the coffee table. The one with the etched lid roses, climbing around the brass handle. My husband gave it to me the year before he died. Inside was what he called my little retirement insurance. Necklaces and bangles, a lifetime of birthdays, anniversaries, and slow, careful saving. Jenna's fingers, perfectly manicured, moved through my things like she was picking groceries. She held the bracelet, the gold one, thick and old-fashioned, up to the light, half smiling. "Yeah," she whispered into the phone. "It's real. I'll bring it tomorrow. Cash only." I stood there, half-shadow in the doorway. My tea went cold before her call ended. She didn't glance once toward the kitchen. When she turned and went upstairs, humming, I stayed right where I was. My heart made no sound I could hear. I just watched the box sit there open, its velvet inside breathing quiet air. She didn't know who was watching from the other room. I waited a long time before moving. Old habits die slow. You learn that from years of working behind an office desk, the art of doing nothing, just watching until the pattern forms. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and the last dinner she cooked. Chicken in too much garlic. I set my teacup down, wiped the counter clean, and listened to the creaks of her footsteps fading upstairs. The floorboards still remembered me. Then I walked into the living room. The jewelry box was lighter than usual. When I lifted the bracelet, I felt the empty space it had left behind. My thumb found the small dent on the rim where my husband had once dropped it. Those dents were private. They weren't meant for someone like her outside. The street was quiet, just a leaf blower somewhere and the faint sound of a neighbor's wind chime. I sat down on the couch and looked at the space where my son's photograph used to be. She had replaced it with a large canvas print, beach waves, generic and soulless. It was strange, really, how perfectly my silence fit into their home now. 3 years. That's how long I'd been staying with them. My son, Michael, had said it made sense after the hip surgery. "Just until you're steadier, Mom." His exact words. The first month felt like mercy. Breakfast smells, someone else handling bills, laughter upstairs. Then, slowly, the laughter turned thin. Every movement of mine became an interruption. My grocery choices were outdated. My soap too floral. My shoes in the wrong place, and I stayed quiet. Because history told me silence kept the peace. Even when my father died and left me nothing but his debts, I had smiled. Even when the man I married worked himself to the grave without enough pension for comfort, I smiled. But this new silence, in my son's house, it wasn't peace. It was exile in slow motion. Jenna had begun to lock certain drawers in the kitchen. She said it was to keep things organized. She let me know when I could have visitors. Her voice always carried that suggestion that I owed her gratitude for helping me out. That afternoon, I went back to my small basement bedroom. The light flickered, as if the bulb couldn't decide how much I should see. I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about that jewelry box. I counted in my head the pieces that were supposed to be there. I knew them like children: the pearl brooch, the sapphire ring, the gold chain from my mother. The ledger of those pieces sat in my memory, complete with their tiny scratches and repairs that I used to keep receipts and valuations. Too old habit from my Clark days. Paper mattered. Ink didn't lie. I wondered if those documents still existed. Maybe in the storage trunk from our old house, the one Michael insisted on locking in his garage for space. Something started turning over inside me then, not rage, but shape. A shape of something I had forgotten could still move. Dinner was quiet that night. The television mumbled from the living room while we sat around the table. Jenna scrolled on her phone, smiling at something unseen. "You don't need to worry about that jewelry, Mom," she said suddenly. not lifting her eyes. Some pieces looked a little tarnished. I'll have them cleaned. My fork paused in the mashed potatoes. Cleaned. She finally met my eyes. It was there, that thin, polite smile people use when they talk to someone inconsequential. Yeah, she said lightly. No use keeping stuff like that closed up. I mean, you hardly wear any of it. Michael didn't look up. His face had that permanent tiredness now, too many mortgages, too many bills, too little spine. I nodded. You're right. Things do get dusty. Nothing more was said. But something else settled inside me. Not the dust. The decision that night. I waited until their bedroom door closed upstairs. The sound of their laughter turned low, private, and then dissolved into quiet. A car passed on the street outside, its headlights slicing the blinds for a brief second. I opened the small lockbox under my bed and took out the old check register and a folder labeled House Legal. I hadn't opened it in years. Dust around the clasp was thick enough to remember whole decades. Inside were photocopies of the property deed, Michael's old loan application co-signed by his father, and a few insurance documents. The paper smelled faintly of mildew, old paper, and basement damp, familiar, almost comforting. I laid them out across the bedspread, touching each corner slowly, like greeting old friends. When you work decades as a clerk, numbers become more than digits. They are stories with punctuation. The mortgage was listed under my husband's name, with my secondary sign-off. After his death, I had paid the rest alone, small portions, stubborn months until it was clean. My house, except, of course, it wasn't mine now. Not since I moved in here. I thought about the trunk in the garage, the one Jenna said was too heavy to move. She had used that phrase too often. Too heavy to move. Maybe she meant something else. The next morning, I made breakfast earlier than usual. Bacon, eggs, toast, simple, American. Jenna never liked the smell of bacon grease in her kitchen, so I made sure to keep the window open. The cold December air made the curtains dance like shy ghosts when she came down, hair in a perfect bun and face already painted for her remote meetings. She barely glanced at me. Morning, she said, grabbing her smoothie bottle. Morning, I said back, calmly as she turned toward the garage door. I watched her keychain swing, little gold charms clinking soft metal songs. Jenna, I said. Would you mind if I looked through that old trunk today? The one from the house? Her shoulders stiffened for half a second. She turned, still smiling. Oh, that. It's really heavy. Michael was supposed to get rid of it ages ago. I remember it's got some of my old paperwork, I said mildly, pouring coffee. Just housekeeping. Oh, sure, she said, shrugging. If you really want. She was lying. Her tone had that layer, smooth on top, sharp underneath. She grabbed her coat, kissed the air near my cheek, and left. The engine of her silver SUV hummed away. The garage smelled of oil and dust. My breath made small white clouds. The trunk sat near the back, under folded cardboard boxes marked Christmas and Michael's tools. When I lifted the lid, the hinges sighed. The air inside was stale, the smell of wood, paper, and dry fabric. My fingers trembled slightly as I reached in. There they were, the receipts from the jewelry appraisals, dated 20 and 30 years back. Each tiny description matched the items in my memory. The handwriting from the jeweler, loopy, patient letters. My throat felt thick, but not from sadness. From clarity. I noticed something else too, a smaller envelope tucked under the papers, addressed in my late husband's hand. To Margaret, in case something happens to me. He had written it almost 20 years ago, after that first heart scare. I had forgotten it existed. The paper had yellowed, folded crisp lines like old fabric. Inside were old certificate copies, my name alone on a few items. My husband had transferred certain investments to me quietly, before the end. I never told Michael. Maybe I was afraid of what that would change. Now I saw it clearly. The fragments of independence I had tucked away like trinkets for later. Later was now. That evening, Michael came home late. He always smelled of mechanical soap and stress. Jenna was in the living room again, folded into the couch with her phone. She barely looked up when I entered. The jewelry box sat on the coffee table, closed now, polished. Did you get it cleaned? I asked softly. She blinked, obviously surprised that I noticed. Oh, yeah. I just wiped it down. Looked nicer that way. Her voice flickered. I almost felt sorry for her. I see, I said. It does look nice. Then I turned toward Michael. You got a minute, dear? He hesitated, then nodded toward the hallway. Sure, Mom. In the hallway shadows, I spoke quietly. I'd like to check on the storage trunk tomorrow. Might have some tax receipts in there. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. Yeah, okay. Jenna mentioned you wanted that. Go ahead. His voice was thinner than it used to be. I wondered what part of him she'd hollowed out first. That night I barely slept. The house made those small winter noises, contraction, wind between siding, pipes whispering. I thought of my husband, the slow, honest way he'd kept every document in labeled folders. The next morning, I pulled out my old planner from the nightstand. Its pages smelled of dust and ink. I wrote a single note under today's date: bank. Legal copy. Safe deposit.it had been 12 years since I last visited that bank. I still remembered the branch manager's name, or at least the way he used to offer peppermints at the desk. Most people forget too easily. I folded the note and slipped it into my purse. A tea breakfast. Jenna was unusually chatty. Oh, Michael's taking me shopping today, she said brightly. I saw these earrings online. She stopped abruptly and smiled. Not yours, of course. Of course, I said. The sunlight caught the side of her cheek. She looked almost translucent, thin like glass that could crack any second. When they left, I finished my coffee slowly. Then I took the folder from the trunk, placed it in my purse, and locked the door behind me. The air outside was brisk, sharp with December cold. The sky was that washed-out winter blue that made everything look cleaner than it really was. I drove Michael's old sedan. The steering wheel felt dry and cracked under my hands, but reliable. Halfway to the bank, I realized I was humming, something I hadn't done in years. The bank lobby smelled of carpet shampoo and faint coffee. The receptionist looked young enough to be my granddaughter. Good morning, How can I help you? I'd like to access a safe deposit box, I said. My voice came out steady. Name? Margaret Nolan. She typed, nodded, then looked apologetic. You haven't been here in a while. We'll just need to verify ID. Of course. I handed her my driver's license, crisp and current. She smiled politely. It's still active, she said. Right this way. The bank manager, older, grey-suited, met me near the back vault door. His handshake was soft but respectful. Mrs. Nolan. Been some time? Yes. Life got quiet, I said. He nodded knowingly. Inside, in the metal silence of the vault, he slid out the narrow box. When I lifted the lid, the smell hit me first: metallic, paper, and faint perfume. Inside were a few sealed envelopes and a folded list of account transfers. Nothing dramatic. But enough. Enough to start. I added the folder of jewelry appraisals, sealed in plastic. Now, would you like me to update your contact information? The manager asked. Yes, I said. But only mine. Remove any other linked contacts. Of course. When I left, my steps felt unfamiliar on the polished floor. Lighter, maybe. A tea lunch. I stopped by a cafe I used to visit after doctor appointments. Tomato soup, saltines, old memories. A woman my age sat alone by the window, reading. I noticed her ring, a heavy gold band, simple and honest. I thought about my missing jewelry pieces. Maybe, in some pawn store, someone like her was holding one right now, admiring it. That idea didn't anger me. It only strengthened the plan forming behind my calm expression. That evening, I came home before they did. The first thing I noticed was the jewelry box missing from the coffee table, and my fingertips found the ring mark it had left on the wood. I smiled quietly to myself. In my room, I opened a small drawer and took out my ledger book, the same kind I used at work decades ago. On the first page, I wrote in neat, deliberate letters, December the 7th, start of records, household. Beneath it, Item 1, missing jewelry. Confirm doc copies stored. Item 2, trunk inspection complete. Item 3, bank access secured, new contact list. The pen's scratch sounded louder in the stillness. When they came home, I heard their voices outside the door. Muffled but tense. You shouldn't have left it out, Michael said. She wouldn't know, Jenna snapped back. You baby her too much. I just think about your job, Michael. Not her junk. Keys clattered, door opened. Their steps came in, quick and clipped. I closed my ledger, tucked it under the pillow, and waited. She knocked once, half opened my door. "You were out today?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "running errands?" "Something like that." Her eyes lingered on the folded coat near my chair. Maybe she saw the folder corner peeking out. "Well," she said, "dinner's late. Microwave if you're hungry." "I will," I said when the door closed. I let out a quiet breath, measured. Even tomorrow, I'd call someone. Not a friend. A lawyer. I remembered his name suddenly, Mr. Conrad, the same man who had helped me after my husband's passing, gentle and old-fashioned but sharp. He had said back then, "Mrs. Nolan, you read fine print better than any client I've had." I had laughed, modestly. But now his words sounded different. Like possibility. That night, I lay awake listening to the hum of their television through the walls. The sound of laughter, artificial, sitcom laughter, reached me faintly. I thought of the yellow envelope, of my husband's steady handwriting. In case something happens to me. Something had happened. Just not the kind he'd expected. The ring on my hand caught faint moonlight. I twisted it once, slow. Next morning, I made oatmeal, stirring calmly as the water boiled. Jenna came down half asleep, coffee mug in hand. "Morning," she muttered. "Morning," I said. "I'll be out later," she added. "Meeting a buyer for some stuff." "Ah," I said mildly. "What kind of stuff?" She hesitated, then waved her hand. "Just old clothes. Nothing important." She poured her coffee and walked away, humming a song that didn't suit her voice. The oatmeal bubbled softly, thick and golden. I turned off the stove, wiped the counter, and looked out the window. The mail truck stopped in front of the house. The driver placed a single envelope in our box. Routine. Ordinary. Except I knew that tomorrow, there'd be a different letter, one with Mr. Conrad's name on it, addressed directly to me. I'd already written the note last night, ready to mail today. I rinsed the pot slowly, feeling the porcelain edge under my fingers. That afternoon, when Michael came home early, he looked distracted. "Jenna forgot to lock the garage," he said absently. I nodded, folding laundry. "These things happen." He rubbed his shoulder. "Mom, you're not upset about anything, right? Jenna said you seemed quiet." I smiled faintly. "When was I not quiet, dear?" He shrugged. "Just checking." He left it at that. But his eyes looked older somehow, like shadows had built small rooms inside him too. Late evening. The jewelry box was back on the table. But lighter. I didn't check which pieces were gone this time. I didn't need to. The ledger would know. Instead, I sat on the porch with my coat buttoned to the neck. The air smelled of pine from a neighbor's wreath. Somewhere, faint Christmas music played through someone's open window. I thought of how people wrap their mistakes in decoration every year. Lights, garlands, smiles. And underneath, the same cracks spreading quietly. Not this year, I thought. Not for me. When the house went dark, I walked to my small desk, turned on the lamp, and opened a fresh envelope. I wrote in ink so blue it almost glowed. "Dear Mr. Conrad, it's Margaret Nolan. I hope your health is well. I'm writing because I may need help reviewing property and asset documents. Please call me your earliest convenience. It's about some items that were mishandled without my consent. I'd prefer discretion. You can reach me at my cell number below. Warm regards. Margaret Nolan." The pen hovered before signing the last curl of my name. I felt something shift deep in my chest, not anger, but balance returning, like a level after years of being tilted. Outside, a car door slammed. Jenna's voice carried faintly, clipped, scornful. I sealed the envelope. The glue tasted slightly bitter, like old sugar. Before heading to bed, I walked into the living room one last time. The moonlight snuck through the blinds, silvering the edges of the jewelry box. I touched it lightly, then pulled open the bottom drawer of the cabinet nearby. From deep inside, I took out an older wooden box no one had seen in years. Inside were 2 rings wrapped in tissue, both from my mother's inheritance, the ones I never showed Jenna. They felt cold at first, then warmer as they sat in my palm. I slipped one onto my finger. The fit was still perfect. Paper, metal, silence, my truest allies. The next morning, before anyone woke, I slipped out quietly. The street was still blue with early light, air frozen enough to sting the lungs. I walked to the corner mailbox and dropped the letter it landed with that small, satisfying sound. Paper against hollow metal, something irreversible about that sound. When I returned, the house was beginning to stir. Coffee machines, phones, running water, the noises of entitlement waking up. Jenna was already dressed, scrolling through messages. Morning, she said flatly. You're up early. Yes, I said. Just needed some air. She frowned slightly at the coat still buttoned up. Weird time for a walk. I smiled without answering. She narrowed her eyes, searching for something she couldn't name. Then shrugged. All right. Suit yourself. I watched her leave later with Michael. Their car backed out slowly toward the main road. The house fell into silence again. The kind that hums, clean and expectant. I took out my ledger and opened to the next blank line. Item 4, letter mailed to Mr. Conrad. Pending response. I underlined it twice. Then, leaning back in the chair, I looked toward the window. Light poured in, pale, wintry, honest. My husband once said people show their truth not in words, but in what they think you don't see. He would have smiled at me now. Maybe I even smiled back, just barely, and then a faint, distinct sound. From outside. A car door shutting. Footsteps approaching the porch. A shadow in the frosted glass by the front door. 3 knocks, steady, deliberate. The knocks came again, 3, measured. Not impatient, not afraid. Just certain. I wiped my hands on my apron, took a slow breath, and walked toward the front door. The morning light spilled in from the side window, glinting across the brass handle like a half-awake eye. Through the frosted glass I could make out the outline of a man in a long coat, briefcase tucked under one arm. When I opened the door, the cold came first, clean, sharp, filled with the smell of car exhaust and pine mulch from the neighbor's yard. Mrs. Nolan, he said, tipping his head. I hope I'm not too early. It was him. Mr. Conrad. He looked older than I remembered, face fuller, hair thinner. But that same mild intelligence still lived behind his glasses, the kind that saw more than he ever said. Not at all, I said. Please come in. Inside, the house felt different with him standing near the doorway, his presence peeling something old from the walls. I led him to the dining table. Steam from my half-finished oatmeal curled in the corner. Light, cold morning, he said, opening his briefcase. Your note sounded urgent. Thank you for coming, I told him quietly. You mentioned property and assets. Something mishandled? I nodded, sitting opposite him, the wood between us clean and deliberate. My daughter-in-law has been selling my jewelry. Pieces that are legally mine. I wanted to confirm what protection I might still have. No shaking voice. Just facts. The way I had written them in my ledger. He adjusted his glasses and took out a notepad. Do you have proof of ownership? Wordlessly, I pulled out the folder from my purse. Receipts, appraisals, the letter from my late husband. Paper made its dull, satisfying shuffle as it hit the table. His eyes softened. You kept everything. I was a clerk for 35 years, I said. I keep paper the way other people keep faith. He half smiled, flipping through pages. Legally, this is solid. You still hold title to the jewelry. Any sales without your written consent count as conversion, essentially theft. The word theft landed gently, but it echoed deep. He continued, you could file a claim, ask for police intervention, or handle it civilly first. That depends on what you want. I stared at the thin rising steam from my bowl. I don't want chaos. I want control. He understood. Nodded once, then begin quietly. Inventory everything, note any missing items, and keep receipts from potential sales if possible. I can help you draft a letter of notice, gentle at first. Good, I said. I'd rather they learn who they underestimated before they hear it from a judge. The front door creaked just then, the unmistakable hinge side. My spine went still. Boots on hardwood, rustle of a coat. Mom? Michael's voice. You home? I met Mr. Conrad's eyes. Calm, both of us. Years of practice, him with clients, me with family in here. I called. Michael stepped into the room, surprised to see another person there. Oh. Everything okay? Yes, I said easily. Just going over some paperwork with Mr. Conrad. Recognition flickered. He remembered the lawyer's name from my husband's estate. I watched the tension appear at the corner of his mouth. Why? He asked, too quickly. Mr. Conrad closed his notepad. His tone remained polite but professional. We're updating some old documents, that's all. Michael looked between us, uncertain. Jenna didn't say anything about this. She wouldn't, I said quietly. He blinked, frowning, caught between confusion and obedience to someone not even in the room. Okay, he said finally, rubbing his temple. Just don't let anything stress you out, Mom. I smiled. I don't anymore. When he left, closing the door a little harder than needed, Mr. Conrad exhaled. You're not afraid, he observed. I forgot how. We spent another half hour filling out forms. His pen scratched steady lines, mine waited beside my cup, watching. Before leaving, he said, I'll have a draft of the formal notice ready within 3 days, less if you'd like an email copy. Printed, I answered. I prefer things that can't disappear with a password. He smiled at that. I understand completely. At the door, he put his coat on slowly. Mrs. Nolan, if they become confrontational, don't engage. Call me first. I won't need to raise my voice, I told him. Paper speaks louder. He nodded, then stepped back into the cold. The sound of his car fading down the street felt like punctuation at the end of a sentence I'd been writing for years. For the rest of the day, the house stayed quiet. Michael worked in the garage. Jenna didn't return calls I could hear but not see. I made soup for lunch, onion, potato, thyme. The scent filled the kitchen, carving warmth into the air. I wrote in my ledger while it simmered. Item 5, meeting held. Mr. Conrad preparing notice. Michael aware, unintentionally. The act of writing steadied my breath. Each letter felt like a step on solid ground. By evening, I heard the shrill sound of tires crunching ice on the driveway. Jenna was home, voices rose upstairs, muffled but sharp-edged, Michael explaining, her answering in quick disbelief. Then silence. Then the sound of rapid footsteps descending. She stopped at the kitchen doorway, holding her phone like a weapon. I just heard you met with that lawyer, she said. What's going on? I did, I answered without looking up from the cutting board. We're reviewing ownership of personal property. You mean jewelry, she snapped, among other things. She gave a short laugh, disbelieving. You think you can sue your own family? I looked at her then. Family doesn't sell memories for cash. Her cheeks flushed pink, anger blooming through her makeup. You don't know anything about our situation. I sliced through an onion cleanly, the blade gleaming. You're right, I said. I only know about my own. The silence that followed was heavy enough to feel. She took a step back. Michael thinks you're confused. Maybe stressed. Tell Michael I still balance my accounts to the cent, I said. Something in my voice made her freeze ever so slightly. Then she muttered, fine, and walked out fast. That night, I hid the jewelry appraisals in the false bottom of my laundry basket. Old habits, paranoid once, practical now. From the upstairs vent came muffled conversation. Words like lawyer, crazy, insurance. I didn't listen longer than needed. Anger wastes energy. Silence invests it. Morning came blue and brittle. The first flurries dusted the cars outside. When I walked into the kitchen, Jenna was already on the phone, her tone syrupy. Yes, I just wanted to check what the refund policy is. No, it's fine, I just might have to return some items. She paused, then added, quieter, no, she doesn't know. I poured coffee slowly. The smell carried through the air like truth running under chatter. When she hung up, she turned and tried the same old smile. You sleep okay? Perfectly. She hesitated as if waiting for something more. I gave her none. Around 10, an email alert chimed on my phone. Document draft attached. Mr. Conrad was fast. I opened it slowly, scrolling down the neat black paragraphs. Notice of unauthorized sale of personal property. Plain language, legal muscle under politeness. It asked formally that any possessions belonging to me be returned within 7 business days, otherwise law enforcement would be notified. A template, simple and firm. I printed it at the library by the post office. The printer's hum sounded like quiet applause. Warm paper slid out, smelling faintly of toner and finality. When I came home, Jenna's car was gone. I put the letter on the table and folded an envelope around it. Pen poised. Her name looked strange in ink, Jenna Carter Nolan. Names change easier than integrity. I sealed it and left it in the center of the table, under the sunlight coming through the blinds like a spotlight. She noticed it that evening. Dinner was nearly ready when I heard her quick steps down the hall. What's this supposed to mean? She waved the letter slightly above eye level, voice trembling between anger and fear. It means acknowledgement, I said. You're threatening me, she demanded. No, I said. I'm documenting. Michael walked in halfway through, face pale. He read the letter over her shoulder, lips moving slowly. Mom, what are you doing? What I should have done the first time you both called it your house. His mouth opened, closed. We didn't. Everything in that box downstairs is in my name, I said, calm. And when the house sells, don't forget whose down payment built the walls you're arguing under. Jenna slammed the envelope onto the table. You can't guilt us with money. I don't have to, I replied. Money doesn't feel guilt. It keeps receipts. She left the room in a huff. Michael stayed, rubbing his forehead. Mom, please, can we not make this ugly? I didn't, I said. You let it become so. He followed her upstairs soon after. Their voices rose, then softened, then a door slammed. I finished washing the dishes, every clink of porcelain measured and calm outside. Snow began to drift thickly, the flakes hitting the window like small ghosts asking to be let in. 2 days passed. Silence became routine again, but it was different, tense, checked. Jenna avoided me, eyes sliding away whenever we met in the hallway. On the third morning, a certified letter arrived from Mr. Conrad, the official copy of the notice, stamped and ready for reference. The envelope made a firm sound when it landed on the front mat. I placed it between the pages of my ledger like a pressed flower, evidence of a bloom that would never wilt. By afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Mrs. Nolan? Came an uncertain male voice. Yes. This is Joe, from Capital Exchange Pawn off Route 9. Someone named Jenna was here trying to sell a few pieces of jewelry. Your lawyer called me this morning to verify ownership. I just wanted to let you know we've flagged the items and they're being held. My breath stayed calm, but my pulse exhaled warmth through my fingertips. Thank you, Joe, I said softly. Keep them safe. They'll come home soon. He cleared his throat. Of course, Sorry for the trouble. No trouble, I assured him. You might have helped restore something valuable. When the call ended, I looked out the window at the pale ribbon of street glistening under snow. Proof. One word strong enough to rebuild an entire life. That evening at dinner, Jenna picked at her plate, restless. She hadn't touched the chicken. Finally, she slammed down her fork. You're making a fool of us. Do you know that? I looked up. Paperwork doesn't humiliate. Behavior does. Her eyes glistened. Do you really want the police in our home? I want truth everywhere, I said. Let it choose where it belongs. Michael whispered her name, but she pushed back her chair and left. The sound of her footsteps thudded upstairs like punctuation marks in a bad story. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of water, the faucet cold enough to sting my skin. Michael came downstairs, worn expression, voice low. Mom. I didn't know, he said. I swear I didn't. I believed him. Weakness isn't malice, though it breeds it. I know, I said. But now you do. He sat at the table, rubbing his knuckles. She said we needed money for a down payment, wanted to help. I thought, on what? My silence. He winced. I'm sorry. Don't be yet, I said. Be patient. Watch what happens when people think you have no power left. He didn't meet my eyes, but his shoulders loosened slightly, as if remembering the boy who once trusted my advice more than anyone's. Days passed. The snow deepened. Small routines filled the edges of waiting. Laundry, old radio shows. The smell of cinnamon tea. On the fifth morning, the doorbell rang again. A deputy in a grey coat stood outside, snowflakes clinging to his hat brim. Mrs. Nolan? Yes. He handed me a document in a plastic sleeve. Return acknowledgement of property. The pawn shop identified and released the items as yours. Just need your signature. My fingers traced the official seal. Thank you. Have a good day, he said, tipping his hat against the cold. I watched him drive off, leaving perfect tire trails across the white drive. Then I stepped back into the house that wasn't yet mine but no longer fully Jenna's either. When she came downstairs 10 minutes later, she saw the envelope in my hand. What's that? Return receipt, I said. Her jaw tightened. You went to the police. I didn't have to, I said. They came to me. For once, she had no words. Just a pale stillness under her makeup. I passed by her, heading toward my room, and added quietly, I'll be downstairs if you need integrity lessons. The air behind me felt charged, electric, but I didn't turn around. Did I end my room? I reopened the ledger. The ink of each line seemed darker now. Confident. Item 6. Property recovered. Official acknowledgement signed. I tapped the pen once against the margin, thinking. Mr. Conrad had said legal recourse could extend further, restitution, even eviction if the house was misused. That last part lodged itself like seed in soil, not revenge. Just equilibrium. That evening, Michael knocked softly. I read the notice. Mom, he said, entering. And her messages. You were right. I nodded. She's scared now. She said she might leave for a few days. Let her, I said. Fear clears air better than Febreze. He tried to laugh, then sighed. What do you want me to do? Nothing yet. Sometimes stillness frightens people more than noise. When the house went quiet after midnight, I stood by the window, watching snow shimmer orange under streetlights. The world's silence felt aligned with mine, measured, patient. Unstoppable. Once in motion. I thought about the next move, the ownership of the house. Technically still in family trust. But trusts could be re-examined. Adjusted. That would require another meeting, another set of papers. I smiled faintly, feeling my husband's presence in the hush. See? I whispered. You married an archivist, not a victim. Morning light filtered in pale and flat. Frost made small veins on the inside of the glass. Jenna's car was gone. Michael sat at the kitchen table, coffee cup untouched, eyes hollow. She said she's staying with her sister for a bit, he murmured. Said the house feels hostile. I stirred my tea. Houses echo what people bring into them. He looked at me a long moment. What happens now? Now we breathe, I said. And then we build. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A call from Mr. Conrad. Mrs. Nolan. Everything settled with the pawn shop? Yes. Thank you. Good. Then we should discuss the property itself. I reviewed the old trust papers. You're named as both trustee and beneficiary, which means you control decisions if there's evidence of misconduct or neglect within the premises. A pause. I let the words settle. Meaning, I said slowly, I can request exclusive authority over the house? Exactly. We can start that process whenever you're ready. I looked around at the tidy counters, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the snow outside reflecting light into every corner. I'm ready, I said. I ended the call, then dialed another number. Michael's cell left on the counter. It rang upstairs. He answered hoarsely. Yes, Mom? I need you to meet me in the dining room. Bring your keys. My keys. Please. When he arrived, bewildered, I pointed to his key ring, the house key specifically for the paperwork, I said gently. Transition process requires documentation of current holders. He hesitated, then handed it over. You're really doing this? Yes, I said. But not to punish. To protect. He nodded slowly. Do what you need to. That afternoon felt like spring hiding under snow. Air lighter, corners brighter. I wrote the next line in my ledger. Item 7. Control over property initiated. Pending documentation. Then underlined a single phrase. Silence continues to serve. At tea dusk, while I prepared tea, the sound of a car returned to the driveway. Unexpected, sharp tires on ice. Jenna, she came in without knocking, coat unbuttoned, eyes red from crying or exhaustion, or both. We need to talk, she said. I nodded toward the table. We can. She sat heavily, gloved hands trembling. I panicked. Okay? I didn't think you'd do all this. You thought wrong, I said. I can fix it, she pleaded. Give back everything, apologize, just don't take the house. I stirred sugar into my tea calmly. Fixing something implies it was broken accidentally. Tears pooled, genuine or performed, hard to tell. Please, she whispered. Michael needs this place. So did I said. For peace. You turned it into a transaction. She wiped her eyes, looked at me fiercely. You can't live alone forever. Who's going to look after you? I smiled, unhurried. Competence looks after itself. She stood, frustrated. You're cruel. No, I said quietly. Just done. Her breath hitched, and she turned toward the door. Then paused. You'll regret it when you're old and lonely. I already was, I said. The door closed behind her. Snow kept falling through the night. I recorded the conversation word for word while it was fresh. Facts love immediacy. As I closed the ledger, I heard the faint creak of Michael's floorboard above me. He was awake, listening. Maybe understanding. By the next morning, sunlight dared itself through clouds. I received a calendar notice from Mr. Conrad's office. Preliminary Property Trust meeting, Thursday, 11 a.m. 2 days. I circled the date in red ink. Then I brewed coffee and sat by the window, watching neighbor kids throw snowballs in the distance. Their laughter drifted faint, honest, unaware. Freedom sounds something like that. I thought. Around noon, the phone rang again. Unknown number. For a second, I almost ignored it. Then instinct took over. This is Margaret, I said. A pause. Then Jenna's voice, low and shaky. I can't find my rings, she said. Did you take them? I looked toward my desk drawer where her pawn slips rested, returned by the shop as evidence. I keep what belongs to me, I said evenly. Her inhale was sharp. You're destroying this family. No, I said. I'm redrawing it. She hung up. I stared at the receiver a moment longer, listening to the soft click echo fade. That evening, Michael cooked dinner for both of us. Simple stir-fry, edible. Nervous. He set my plate first, then his. Quiet. I called work today, he said after a while. Asked for a few days off. I'll go with you Thursday. Make sure things are civilized. That's thoughtful, I said. Civility is always welcome. He nodded, eyes on his food. Shame softens faster than anger if fed care. I spent the night organizing copies for the meeting. Deed, trust documents, ID proofs, notarized pages of Mr. Conrad's letters. Each item in plastic sleeve, labeled in pen. The rhythmic sound of the hole puncher felt almost like a heartbeat, steady, unhurried. Then, 11:30, a sound outside. Tires again, but slower this time. I walked to the window. Headlights lingered on the driveway before turning off. Car door opening. A figure stepping out, wrapped in heavy coat. Even from here, I recognized the outline, small shoulders, tight posture. Jenna. She stood there for a long time, staring up at the window where my shadow moved. Her hand lifted once, half gesture, then dropped. Without thinking, I opened the front door slightly. The cold bit my skin like truth biting through excuses. She looked up. Our eyes met through thin air and snow. Then she said, almost in a child's voice, I didn't mean to steal from you. I know, I said. You meant to win. She blinked tears, nodded once, and turned back to her car. When she drove away, the headlights carved a brief gold line across the snow like a signature, temporary and bright. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against the wood, listening to the quiet settle. Upstairs, Michael shifted in sleep. Downstairs, my papers waited. Time felt balanced, past and present finally shaking hands. I looked again at the calendar on the wall, at Thursday's red circle. 2 days, and somewhere between the ticking clock and the whispering heat events, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, anticipation. The phone kept vibrating on the table, humming against the wood like a trapped insect. Snowlight spilled through the window, silver and still. I stared at the screen. Unknown number. The text preview still glowed. We know what she did. Call me now. For a moment, I didn't move. Silence can stretch into something almost holy when you've learned patience. Then I picked up the phone and pressed call back. A man answered on the third ring. Mrs. Nolan? Yes. This is Detective Santos, County Financial Crimes Division. Your attorney forwarded documentation about unauthorized sales of jewelry. We've recovered additional items connected to your case, pawn tickets signed in your daughter-in-law's maiden name. My breath stayed level. How many? 7 pieces total. Estimated value around 8,000. We'll need you to verify ownership. 8,000. She'd gone back again, even after the warning. I'll come in this afternoon, I said. Appreciate it, When the line went dead, the house buzzed faintly in the quiet heating vent, refrigerator, distant wind scratching along the windows. So she wasn't done. But neither was I. I ironed a clean blouse, buttoned it slowly. The cotton smelled of starch and lavender water. Little rituals matter when walking into rooms filled with authority. Michael was still asleep upstairs. I didn't wake him. There's mercy in not witnessing the exact moment a marriage collapses under truth. The drive to the station was silent. My hands rested steady on the wheel. Outside, winter houses passed like paper shapes, calm after last night's storm. inside the precinct, fluorescent light flattened everything to honesty. They showed me the jewelry under plastic on a metal table. Rings, chains, one bracelet with the small dent on its rim. I touched the plastic, not the gold, that one, I said softly. My husband dropped it in '94 on our anniversary. I kept the dent. The detective smiled a little. That's confirmation enough. He took my signature, explained next steps, property release, formal charges if I wished. Would you like to press full charges? I studied the word press. It sounded like weight. Pressure. Decision, no, I said after a pause. Document everything. Keep it on record. But no arrest, for now. One eyebrow lifted. You sure? Yes. Sometimes letting someone fear tomorrow hurts worse than any court. He nodded slowly, respectful. You're one steady lady, Mrs. Nolan. I've had practice, I said. By noon I was home again. Footprints marred the clean snow leading to the porch, 2 pairs. One mine, one new. Inside on the table sat a letter, unsealed. Jenna's handwriting, shaky, smudged. Margaret, I'm leaving for good. Michael can explain. I can't face you after what I did. I'll send back anything that's yours. Please don't destroy him over my stupidity. I read it once. Then folded it carefully, slid it into the back of my ledger under the date. Paper belongs with paper. Upstairs I heard drawers opening, slow and tired. Michael packing. When he came down hours later, suitcase in hand, we stood at an awkward distance, the air between us smelling faintly of dust and detergent. She's gone, he said. I know. She's sorry. I'm sure. He lowered his eyes. I don't know what comes next. You learn, I said. About honesty. About paperwork. He almost smiled at that, pain mixed with understanding. I'll stay at a friend's for a bit, he murmured. You'll be okay? Better than okay. He hesitated at the door. Mom, thank you. For not pressing charges. I looked outside at the falling snow. Everyone answers for themselves eventually. No need to hurry justice. That evening I brewed coffee and set the ledger in front of me. I drew a long line under the last entry, item 8, recovery complete. Household dissolved. Freedom restored. For the first time in years, my hand trembled, but not from weakness. From release, the next morning I met Mr. Conrad at the courthouse annex. His coat still smelled faintly of old books and coffee. Everything's moving quickly, he said, patting a folder. With your son's consent and your documentation, we can transfer full title back into your name. Effective immediately. He slid the papers toward me, smooth as a magician's, revealed my name alone on the deed. When the pen touched paper, I felt something deep unstitch and re-sew inside my chest. Ownership, identity, calm power. Rebuilding cell by cell. I signed. The ink shone wet for a second, like breathing. Conrad smiled. Congratulations, Mrs. Nolan. The house is legally yours again. I leaned back. Funny word, again. As if it ever truly wasn't. He chuckled softly. Would you like me to file notice of occupancy for them? No need, I said. They've already vacated. I drove home alone but lighter. The sky had cleared to that pale winter blue that almost feels forgiving. Inside, quiet filled every hallway, honest this time. Only my footsteps answered back. I opened the curtains wide. Sunlight hit framed photos, Michael as a boy at a lake, my husband in his work uniform, all of us halfway smiling. Memories, but no traps. Then I opened every window. Cold air rushed in, sharp and pure. The curtains billowed like lungs reclaiming breath. You did it, I whispered to no one in particular. Maybe to the walls. Maybe to the woman I used to be. Over the next few weeks I learned small freedoms again. The thrill of choosing new curtains without consulting anyone. The sound of my radio in the kitchen at any volume I pleased. Morning walks to the post office, frost crunching beneath sturdy shoes. I sold 2 pieces of my jewelry not because I had to, but because I wanted the liquidity to start something new. A separate account in my own name again, with a debit card that answered only to me. I met with Mr. Conrad one last time to finalize trust dissolution. He asked if I planned to keep the house or sell. I'll lease it, I said. Not to family. To someone quiet who pays on time. Practical, he said approvingly. And you? I'll travel. There's a small town near the coast my husband always wanted to visit. Maybe I'll go look at it. Spring crept up stealthily. Lawns thawed, birds returned, the world tried to forget winter. I didn't. Winter had taught me everything. One afternoon I sat on the porch with tea, looking at the for sale signs dotting neighboring yards. The world always keeps moving. People chase novelty. I chased stillness and found gold in it. Michael called occasionally, small updates, a voice learning humility one syllable at a time. He'd taken a new job, lower title but steady hours. He sounded healthier. Sometimes peace begins with removing noise. Jenna never called. Once, I received a brown envelope from a forwarding address, a plain check and a small note, for what I took. No apology, just balance. That was enough. I deposited it and closed the account immediately after. Symbolism disguised as finance. By midsummer, the house smelled different. Lemon polish, rosemary from my small potted plant, not resentment anymore. I had renters lined up, a young nurse and her quiet teacher husband. Good people, respectful. They came by to sign the lease, all smiles and careful questions. After they left, I walked through each room one last time. Sunlight glazed the floors, the air carried the promise of distant rain. I never realized how soundless genuine contentment could be. In August, I moved into a small apartment by the bay. One bedroom, a balcony overlooking the water. The smell of salt carried into every meal. Evenings, gulls cried over the shoreline, announcing the tide's authority. Somewhere inside that rhythm, I felt my husband again, in the creak of the dock, the patience of the sea. I unpacked the restored jewelry box and set it on my new dresser. Its brass handle gleamed in the late sun. The dent on the bracelet caught the light like a wink. I kept only a small ledger now, mostly notes about expenses and tides. But the last entry from the old one stayed burned in memory. Silence continues to serve. It always will. Months later, Michael visited. He looked leaner, clearer-eyed. We walked along the boardwalk, paper cups of chowder warming our hands against the sea breeze. I wanted to say thank you, he said quietly, for letting me figure things out. You did it yourself, I said. She filed for divorce, he added. I nodded. Then maybe both of you can start honest versions of yourselves. He smiled faintly. You really are something else, Mom. Not something else, I said. Someone restored. We watched the waves roll in. Every crest returned what was once taken. That evening, after he left, I stood on the balcony. The moon hung low, an old coin polished by time. I sipped tea and let the wind sting my cheeks with salt and memory. People think power is noise. Speeches, arguments, slammed doors. They're wrong. Power is knowing you can speak, and choosing when silence says more. Power is in documented truth, in calm signatures, in walking away before the fire starts. I smiled, the calm kind that can outwait storms. Then I closed the balcony door, turned out the lights, and let the ocean sing me to sleep. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs quiet strength today. Like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful life stories told straight from the heart.